Welcome to this video on the poem Walking Away, Cecil Day Lewis from the Love and Relationships Poetry Anthology, AQA Exam Board. Let's get into it. We'll start with a brief reading. I love this poem. It's beautiful. Walking Away. It is 18 years ago, almost to the day, a sunny day with leaves just turning. The touchlines, new ruled, since I watched you play your first game of football then, like a satellite wrenched from its orbit, go drifting away. Behind a scatter of boys, I can see you walking away from me towards the school with the pathos of a half-fledged thing set free into a wilderness, the gait of one who finds no path where the path should be. That hesitant figure eddying away like a winged seed loosened from its parent stem has something I never quite grasped to convey about nature's give and take, the small, the scorching ordeals which fire one's irresolute clay. I've had worse partings, but none that so gnaws at my mind still. Perhaps it is roughly saying what God alone could perfectly show. How selfhood begins with a walking away, and love is proved in the letting go. Okay, so this is a very emotive poem about, I guess, about a parent reflecting on their child growing up. Okay. But let's kind of look, I guess, in a bit more detail. If we start with the title, now, walking away. So it's this process, right? It's used, I guess, as a metaphor for getting older. I like the use of the word walking because it's slow. And, this doesn't happen overnight. The process of growing up and leaving home or being separating from your parents, etc. It's a slow process. The word away here implying a kind of distance between parent and child. If we look at the first line, 18 years ago, almost to the day. I think it's important that the number is 18 because obviously the age of 18 is symbolic of a passage into adulthood, at least in the United Kingdom. That's, the age of which we say, you're an adult now. We place ourselves in the past, almost to the day, and this kind of makes it clear that this is an important memory, right? We have then, if we move into some of the imagery on show, a sunny day. So the use of sun in literature tends to imply hope and happiness, with leaves just turning. There's a sense of nostalgia here, and we come back to that idea of memory. So it starts off, I guess, in kind of a positive way. The touchline's new ruled since I watched you play. The use of play here suggesting a kind of childlike activity. Your first game of football. So it's pretty typical scene of life, young boys playing football, watching them. But it's the then which creates this kind of jump. Then, like a satellite, and remember, satellites orbit around the Earth, and that's why we're going to get that word orbit here, wrenched. Now, this verb implies something being powerfully taken away, wrenched, pulled, grabbed. And once you're out of the orbit, so if this is the Earth and here is the satellite making its way around, suddenly the satellite is wrenched and then it drifts slowly away, starts to drift away. A slow movement. And that's what I mean about walking away, okay? It sets in tone this feeling of like a slow separation. Behind a scatter of boys, I can see that visual image, you walking away from me towards the school. Now, of course, school is really the first moment of independence. Okay? The first moment of independence. With the pathos is, of course, emotion of a half-fledged thing. Half-fledged means like half-formed. Set free, so we have those feelings of freedom emerge, into a wilderness. Now, wilderness is obviously something kind of difficult to navigate, difficult to move through. The gate, that's the way a person walks, of one who finds no path where the path should be. So there's a sense of being lost here. And I guess this is because like the early moves to freedom are not straightforward. Okay, this is a child being let go to school and finding their own way, navigating their own kind of lives, really, because it's then followed up with this adjective here, hesitant, to show that sense of being unsure. So even in that, as the boy leaves, they know they have to, but it's not an easy process. Eddying away like, which signifies the introduction of a simile, a winged seed loosened from its parent stem. Okay, and that's a pretty obvious piece of figurative language to show the separation from parent and child. Has something I never quite grasped to convey about nature's give and take. So now we have thoughtful reflection, sort of the poet and the speaker here moving into a more thoughtful process. The small, the scorching ordeals which fire one's irresolute clay. Now, this is a beautiful line. Essentially, what it means is change is violent. Okay? To make clay, we need fire. Fire, symbolic of heat, destruction, okay? But also creation and rebirth. And often these things are tiny. It's small details in our lives that lead to this. He tells us then, I have had worse partings. Okay, I have had worse partings, but none that so gnaws. And this is a great, because to gnaw means to chip away. It's constantly there, biting, biting, biting. Gnaws at my mind still. Perhaps it is roughly saying what God alone could perfectly show me. Bring the spiritual here, because it's supposed to reflect a kind of eternal experience, something that we can all relate to. Well, particularly parents, but you can relate to it as children of parents, which is how selfhood, which is a word here that means, you, the individual, begins with a walking away, and love is proved in letting go. And that's the kind of central message of the poem, that this is something that has to happen, and it's actually the painful nature of it that proves the importance of it. Because just like making clay, or just like an orbit, just like a satellite being torn from orbit, these things are a natural part of the process in order to reach a sense of independence. So that is, I guess, my kind of reading of the poem. I think it's a really, really good one. I think it's a really important one to know. Definitely one of the core poems that I would discuss. It's structured in such a way that this sense of like the sense of the importance grows through the poem. Yeah, it's constantly building up as we move stanza to stanza to stanza. In terms of rhyme, let's just unpick that together. Day, turning, play, satellite, away. C, C, school, free, one, B. So we do have a sense of rhyme, but it's after each line. The rhyme exists, but it's staggered. And I guess that reflects the sort of staggered, nature of separation. Doesn't happen immediately or on every single line. It takes place over time. So thank you for listening.